All right, we're live. All right, so this is me and Saluna made power rankings for the midseason, just like we did last year. Only this time we're doing it in podcast form. So
How's it going, guys?
Yep, we each ranked 1 to 32 all the teams, and then we combined our list with the averages, and this is what we come up with. So we're going to start at the bottom. Number 32, the worst team in the NFLHC, according to us, is the Chicago Bears.
I don't really think this team is very good outside of Norris Brooks here. Obviously might be pretty decent, but when your second star on the team is Quincy Turner, you know you've got some issues.
Yeah, that's pretty much my problem with this team is that they have nobody on their offense or defense that you can really name other than Berkshire and Quincy Turner. And
Morris
Quincy Turner
Millen
isn't actually good. Yeah, Morris Millen, I guess, but that's only like one player on their defense. The rest of their defense is pretty atrocious. If you look at the stats, they are just almost as bad as Kansas City when it comes to passing yards given up, which is saying a lot. Kansas City is historically bad, and Chicago is almost that bad.
I mean, I don't have the full roster up right now, but I'm pretty sure their whole secondary is like 70-ish and not much better. And like I said, I can't name any, and I'm the one who has to deal with these names every week, so it tells you some stuff.
Yeah.
At least Kansas City has their safeties are all right, whereas their cornerbacks are atrocious.
Yeah. I think Chicago, they ended up in this position mainly because they're like the only expansion team that I can think of that didn't trade their top pick. So a lot of expansion teams are doing well this year compared to last year's expansion teams. And I think a lot of it is to do with better expansion draft players, and also a lot of those picks got traded for decent to good players or to get more picks to get good players. But Chicago didn't do that. They wanted to get Berkshire, which is fine. He's a good quarterback. I think he has a lot of potential, but they just don't have the pieces around him yet to be able to win games. And they're also in the hardest division in NFLHC, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that probably.
All right, so let's move on to 31. We have the Philadelphia Eagles.
I don't really know how I feel about the Eagles. They're I don't know. Ken Eller is super up and down. He's not a very good quarterback, no matter what. He might be in a few years, maybe if you stick with him, but he isn't right now. Other than that, similar problem that Chicago has. The only other person that I know that's relevant is Roderick Milligan.
Well, Jim Malloy is also doing well on their team. He's got both the players I traded him are doing pretty well. He's got 4 interceptions, I think.
He hasn't done anything in a couple of weeks though. I think those were by week 5 and hasn't.
Yeah, he did have 2 in one game, so that inflates.
That's true.
Bit. But he does. Let me just check. Yeah, he's got 4 interceptions, which is tied for the lead. And Milligan has been pretty good as well. But they also have a wide receiver who's
Hawkins.
Good. Hawkins.
I was gonna say I like Michael Hawkins. That was a good draft pick. He's fast.
Yeah, so they do have some talent on that team, but they're just not able to close out and win games. Ken Eller has been. I think I'm a little higher on him than you are, but not much. He's replacement level, in my opinion.
I don't know. He's just he's as average as you can really get for starter material, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say because he's only played 8 games or something, but after the end of the season, you should be able to tell easier how well he'll do in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that. They don't play in a particularly hard conference, but they do have to play the AFC West, which is a pretty strong conference, and I'm not sure the other one. Let me just check.
I have a feeling the Eagles is one of those teams that maybe with a good draft next year might be some team to watch out for a wild card spot.
Yeah, the other division they play is the NFC West, so they play both West divisions. So that's a moderately hard schedule outside of their conference, but their conference is pretty trash for the most part. It's one of the worst. It's definitely the worst NFC conference.
Their record you mean division? Their record in division is 1-3, so that's probably one of the reasons why they've done so badly.
Their only win is against the Giants in Week 1.
And who did they lose to twice? The Cowboys?
Yes.
And then they lost to the they lost to the Redskins.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, that's part of the problem. You need to do better than that, obviously.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to number 30. We have the New York Giants.
I think the thing holding the Giants back is their organization more than anything. The Thomas Wheeler trade was, I don't understand. That's like Rob LeCount levels of stupid for quarterback trading. Their defense is amazing. Otherwise, they would easily be 32nd. I mean, I don't think Dick Cook is the answer, really. But at least he's better, and you can win games, maybe.
Yeah, I agree with that. Their defense is, I would say, in the top 10 probably.
Yeah,
but the offense cannot get anything going. Kotar was a terrible, terrible risk, and it didn't work out. I don't know why the Giants soured on Wheeler so much. They were talking about him as like an MVP candidate last year. He did have good numbers. He did have good numbers. He wasn't quite an MVP candidate, but he was close. He was close to being up there, and he's performing very well on Kansas City. So
they just gave up immediately after he didn't win the MVP. I don't understand.
Yeah, maybe it was the playoff game where he didn't do well in the playoffs against the Saints. Maybe that had something to do with it. But, yeah, doesn't make sense to me. They're going to be a scary team if they can get Aaron Shea, I think, in this next draft. But they would have been that team anyway if they didn't trade Wheeler. So they'd actually be better probably. But
I do think they'll win more than I have a feeling something like 3-13 or 4-12 is probably likely for the Giants.
Yeah, I agree. They'll win a couple games. I'm not sure if they're going to keep going with Cook or not. But
I mean, even with Kotar, I think they could still win games. Their team isn't that awful.
Yeah, and Kotar, once they scheme switched, he wasn't throwing like as many interceptions, so he was doing quite a bit better than like the first 5 or 6 games, but still not good enough.
Right.
All right. So 28.
No. 29.
29 is Kansas City Chiefs. This team is historically bad defensively, and only because they have no corners. The rest of their defense is like not terrible, but it's like not good.
I have a feeling that this team would be like 9-7 or something if they had cornerbacks at all. Literally any cornerbacks.
Thomas Wheeler has been amazing this year, I think, considering his defense is like not helping him at all.
And Justin Buchanan's a good running back.
Yeah, he's been pretty good. They started Shoemaker, then he got hurt, and I think he's back, but they're still starting Buchanan.
I think he came back this week or last week or something. I don't know.
I think he came back last week, but they still started Buchanan. So I think they're going with him for the rest of the season, which I think is good for them.
Yeah, I agree.
This team is going to be scary next year if they can fill those corner spots. I think they could potentially win the division next year or be in the contention for that if they fix that one gaping hole.
I mean, other than their cornerbacks are literally like a disaster we haven't seen since the season 1 veterans, for those people that remember that stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't understand how they didn't plug this in during the trade window, but I guess by the time they realized it was as big of a problem, it was worth it to just tank, essentially, I guess.
Yeah, and who knows what's going to happen with Enmize. He likes to trade like constantly, so for all we know, he might trade Thomas Wheeler next year and go for somebody else, and who knows. But I do think this team has a lot of talent. They just can't win when you give up 40 to 50 points a game.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know. I still think this is similar to the Giants. I think they'll probably win at least one or two more, just because their offense is good.
Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't surprise me.
Not every quarterback can take advantage of that shitty secondary.
Right. Well, also there's going to be some teams that are more run based anyway. So.
Right. All right. So now 28 is the Atlanta Falcons. I actually had the Falcons much lower than you did.
I've thought about this a couple more in the previous days, and I think I should have put them lower. I think this team's pretty garbage, other than Wilburn.
And an Achille Wallace.
Yeah, Achille Wallace.
Achille Wallace, I think, is a top 5 running back, and he's been like carrying their offense the entire year.
They have no playmakers on defense outside of Wilburn, and I don't like the way AJ Jefferson's progressing. He seems to be getting not as much better as he should be.
Right. If I were them, what I would do is go very conservative in the passing game and try to rely on Achille in the running game the rest of the way. And just let A.J. Jefferson make very conservative, safe throws and not turn the ball over 2 or 3 times a game like he has been. I don't know what's going on with their defense. They had like you said, they have Wilburn and they have R.C. Roan, and those guys have been stars the past couple of years. But this year,
whoa,
sorry about that. They have not shown up very much. They're getting.
I mean, they're still both having pretty decent years. It's just not like fucking ridiculous numbers anymore. The one thing people do have to realize is that the numbers are not going to ever be like. Numbers are starting to return to like real life normal numbers. We're not going to be having like 25 touchdown. Rushing touchdown running backs anymore, or like 20 interceptions or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the most interceptions I think we've had in a year is 7, but still. I think we'll pass that this year just because we have more games, but...
Yeah, I mean, the first season was only, like 8 games, or 10 games?
I think it was 11 games or something.
Yeah.
But that was ridiculous. I still think this team... Like, I don't think it would be a good idea to get rid of Jefferson.
Okay, you better call an order, son.
Sorry about that. So I don't think Jefferson is somebody you got to give up on. You spent a number 2 pick on him. You got to.
You can't do that yet.
I think you got to give him at least another year, probably 2. Before
2.5. 2 is the starter, and then probably 1 is the like keep him on the team kind of thing.
Yeah. So what they really need to do is get somebody to catch balls from Jefferson because their receivers are not that good. Riddick Smith is decent, but I think he's more of a number 2 guy than a number 1.
I agree.
And everyone else they have is mediocre. Their tight end situation is not very good. I think A.J. Jefferson's shown in college that he likes throwing tight ends, so that might be something you could do this year. There's a lot of good tight ends this year in the draft, so that's good for them if they're looking at that. But it could also be a coaching issue because you saw in A.J. Jefferson's senior year, he only threw 2 interceptions, I think, the whole year.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I think the coaching for the Falcons is definitely lacking. I don't know what they can do with that, really.
Well, they went from one of the best coaches to a pretty unknown, from my perspective.
Right. So. I mean, it's true. I don't know. They have a lot of stuff they need to do in the offseason. If they don't do it correctly, I don't know where this is going to go.
Yeah, they definitely have potential to improve significantly, but they really need to not fuck up again. Okay, so let's move on to 27 New England Patriots. I don't know what to say about this team other than they've been horribly run for several years now, and they keep making questionable moves, and that this is where you end up when you consistently make terrible moves.
I feel like the Patriots are just like, whereas some of the other teams like the Bears and the Chiefs are like historically bad, the Patriots are just awful. It's like they've made like 10 decisions outside of the forgetting the re-signings one time. They've made like almost 8 to 10 decisions that are just trash. Really bad trades, really bad signings, really bad draft picks. I am not a fan of Lawyer Johnson or whatever.
Yeah, he got super hyped up by his Wonderlic at the Combine, and they traded a first-round pick to trade back up to get him, I believe. And now that they're going to be a top 10 pick for sure, maybe even a top 5 pick, and they're not going to have their pick. They gave it to the Giants. So that's another questionable move. They had Rob LeCount. Why did you need to trade for Larry Johnson? That doesn't make any sense.
Because they think, for whatever reason, Azul thought Rob LeCount was bad, even though he was putting up like great stats.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. They don't have much at running back. They do have Andre Brooks on defense, and they have some pieces there. But I mean, they're in a division with Miami, who's crushed them like numerous times. They've got to be able to compete with them, and they're not going to do that by making all these questionable moves.
Except that one time where I randomly lost to them.
Yeah. I think you've lost to them twice before, but
yeah, it's similar to the Bears-Saints game in terms of what the fuck happened.
How the hell did the Bears beat the Saints? Anyway, so yeah, I don't have much more to say about the Patriots. Hopefully, with the changes that they've made in their front office, that'll improve things. But we'll see.
Didn't it just like rotate back immediately? Like Azul's doing GM stuff again, right? So
it's Azul is just the owner now.
Okay.
Doctor is their GM.
Oh, right, they hired Doctor. Oh, okay.
They got a new coach.
All right, well, I won't judge that yet. Then I think the team's pretty garbage, but they have potential.
They don't have a lot to work with this year either. They don't have a first round pick, so it's really hard for them to pull themselves out of this gutter. I don't envy Doctor's job this year. All right, so 26, we have the Cleveland Browns. This team is very disappointing for me. They were a playoff team last year, and they're all the way down here at 26.
Hashtag lol Browns.
Typical Browns, factory of sadness.
I don't even know why this team's bad. Their defense is kind of mediocre.
No, their defense is really bad. That's why they are.
Oh,
bad.
Is it?
Their offense is like decent. I like Ryan Clark so far.
I think Ryan Clark needs like a couple of years, but he will be good.
Yeah, I think he's a good future for them. But their real problem is definitely defense. If you look at the stats for defense by team, they give up a ton of yards. They give up a ton of points. They're not getting a lot of turnovers. They're just not doing anything, and that's why they're losing. So I think
that's what happens in the
defense draft. Yeah, they spent first-round picks several years in a row on offense. Like, they got Enoch Dickinson.
Well, they got Ulysses Smith, who's like...
Yeah, they failed getting Ulysses Smith and then traded him for like a 5th rounder or something. And then they took Ty Miller this year, who's been pretty good.
Oh, yeah, they have taken a lot of offense, actually. I didn't think about
and they took Don Williams in the first year. I don't remember who they took in 2015. But
I'm looking right now. For some reason, the wiki's quite slow. I'll bring that up in a second.
But yeah, they've been focusing on offense, and their offense is pretty good. They score a decent amount of points, but they can't stop anyone from scoring points.
Wiki is not loading.
They're like they're 7th in points scored, which is pretty good. They're a top 10 offense, but they just can't stop anyone.
Oh, here we go. 2015 draft. They drafted Enoch Dickinson.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was 2016 for some reason.
2016 was Ulysses Smith.
Okay. So, yeah. By the way, Ulysses Smith, has he ever made a stat sheet?
Who's he? He's on the Chiefs now, I think. I think he has like a half sack and like 2 tackles or something. No, not this season, so maybe not.
Yeah, that's really
so that's bad.
Yeah.
That's really bad. I told you it was trash at Penn State too. Nobody believed me.
All right, moving back to the rankings, 25, Cincinnati Bengals, their fellow AFC North dumpster fire.
Go ahead.
I think the Bengals are suffering from coaching problems, and also their front office let a couple guys go who they shouldn't have this offseason, and they've been making questionable trades their whole existence. So they also have a GM problem, I think.
So, like, I don't know if Danger is essentially like a reality TV show at this point. He still claims that Blake Shell was a better draft pick than Brian Brown, but then 2 days ago in the shout box, he said he regrets not trading for Thomas Wheeler if they had known about it. So I'm not really sure if I'm being punked or what's going on here, but is there some sort of joke going on in the whole site that Danger continues to troll me with Bengals moves that I'm not in on?
I don't know about that. I actually was really high on the Bengals this season before it started. I thought they were like an AFC champion contender, but that's obviously out the window. They've had some serious injury problems as well, which doesn't help.
The Bengals claim that they would be like a top contender in the AFC with Blackman if he was fully healthy, but I don't agree. I think they'd probably be 9-7 at best, maybe somewhere in the 7-9 to 9-7 range. I think they're still probably going to finish around like 8-8, 6-10, 8-8.
Blackman was on their team when they started like 0-3 or 0-4 or something, so I don't think that's.
Yeah, it's not as much of a. They're kind of overhyping that injury, I think, for how much of an effect that it's going to have.
Yeah, so Blackman is a significant loss, but especially since they don't have anyone really to get his production back. But I think their biggest loss was in the offseason. Kendall Hill, I think it is, a defensive tackle. He's having a really good season in Buffalo, and they just let him go in free agency. I'm not sure if they tried to re-sign him and failed, but
I think they had a cap problem and they had to let somebody go.
Yeah, that might be correct, but that's something that they've had issues.
You got to remember they drafted 3 people in the first round in a row at one point.
Yeah, and then they traded one last year. They don't have Barron Anthony anymore. And Blake Shell has just not been good this year. Like, he's been throwing interceptions like crazy.
Yeah, I think the Bengals' problem is mostly front office related, with most of that being whoever the GM is and partially the coaching.
Feverful.
Okay.
Yeah, and Shell's third most interceptions right now behind Larry Johnson and AJ Jefferson, who are both rookies. So that's
bad.
That's really bad. He's got an 88 QB rating, which is not good.
In fact, the people below him are rookies too. The next 2 are Jarius Jones and Ken Eller.
Yeah, so he's I don't know. He had a really good season last year, even though he was injured for a couple of games. But this year he's taking a major setback, and I can't really explain it.
I think it's because of the loss of some people around them, plus coaching.
Yeah, that's probably right.
It's hard to tell you.
All right, so let's go to 24. Houston Texans, another team I was high on at the beginning of the season, and they've just not been good.
Their draft was awful.
I agree. Gordon Kleinsasser in the first was a terrible, terrible reach. They had an early second-round pick that they could have used on a running back like Mike Latta.
They took Nathan Knowlton.
Yeah, that's a defensive tackle?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that this team, like, they have one of the best O-lines, probably the second best O-line, but then they don't have any weapons. And Harold Simmons is, like, slightly above average. Harold Simmons is the kind of guy where you need, like, an elite receiver or, like, a good running back. And they have Ricky Baird, who is pretty good. There's nothing wrong with him. But they decided they needed a running back, so they.
Well, ever since they put Ricky Baird back in, they seem to just disapprove of Ricky Baird because now they're throwing significantly more. So they were running more with Buzz, and then they determined Buzz was bad and traded him. And they went to Ricky Baird, but now they're not barely running anymore. So I don't know if they just don't like Ricky Baird or what.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Baird is a decent running back. He's not like a superstar or anything, but he's good enough to run a balanced offense.
Right.
I don't think they have any receivers that are worth mentioning. Kleinsasser he hasn't really done anything this year. I think they had him third on their depth chart after a couple weeks because they decided he's like not good enough to be number one, which is a bad sign. You don't draft a receiver in the first round, don't expect him to be at least number two. I think this team will win more games, though. I don't think Dakter's coaching was the problem. I think it's just they had a bad draft, and they don't have any like playmakers, and they're pretty average all around, except for O-line, which if you don't have anyone to throw to, your O-line isn't really going to help you.
Yeah.
All right. 23, Pittsburgh Steelers. I had these guys much higher before Ontario Smith got injured.
I don't really think it's going to make that much of a difference. I don't. Rob Core isn't that much worse.
Well,
he's the same kind of quarterback.
We don't know what Rob Core is capable of because he never played in college, from what I understand, and he just came in and he played a decent game in relief of Ontario Smith, but it's just one game, so we'll see how he does. But it seems by all indications that the Steelers are giving up on the season after that happened.
Yeah, it sounds like they're tanking.
So I probably would have had these guys like 5 or 6 spots higher if not for that. I think this is the best expansion. This team had the best draft of the expansion teams, and I think they have. I think Rabbids improved a lot as a coach. He's done much better than most people expected from this team, I think. So,
right.
Yeah. So, I think this team could be in contention with Baltimore for that division next season if they have a good draft again. And I'm not sure if they're going to stick with Ontario. They could upgrade.
This team strikes me as somebody that might try to trade up for like Shea or one of the other top quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I don't think
that's a possibility. But
Ontario is not as bad as people have been making fun of him for the previous seasons, but he's not like a permanent solution.
Yeah, I agree. And the fact that he got injured just means it's probably more likely that they're going to draft a quarterback. Even if it's not in the first round, they probably want to draft somebody that's reliable in case he does get injured again if they're going to keep him. So Rob Core was an undrafted free agent. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm not too high on that situation right now.
Correct.
All right, 22, Indianapolis Colts. This team, I was high on them, and I was high on this whole division before the season, like the Texans, the Colts, Jaguars. But turns out I was wrong. I think that was before Oblivious completely fucked this team.
This team should have been good, but it got fucked by Oblivious's usual case of signing up for something and then not doing it.
Yeah. So they made a couple moves to get the team to be actually be able to play because they didn't even have enough players. They traded Rodney Galbraith to the Chargers. So they have a second first-round pick this year. So they could turn it around. Greg Biera has been pretty bad lately.
I think his time is slowly. He was already kind of always been like a lower-rated quarterback, and he was doing fine for a while, but I think his time's starting to run out.
Yeah, so I would expect the Colts to do something about that this offseason. And they have to find a replacement for Galbraith because I think Quentin Smith is still really good, but they haven't been the defensive powerhouse that they were last year that got them to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And if they want to improve next year, I think that's the way to go. Get a quarterback because they got mostly Bartos, who's been really good this year. He's been much better in his second year than his first year. I think he's like in the top 3 in receiving yards, something like that.
Let me look. I got the stats up.
Despite Greg Biera not being that great.
He is second.
Yeah, so he's been really good. So they need somebody to get him the ball more consistently, I think.
Another possible landing spot for one of the top quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they'll probably finish like 7-9 ish this year, and then probably be better next year, I would assume.
Yeah.
All
right, so
hold
21.
Hold on 1 second. I just want to mention this for people who haven't. This is kind of a short break for people who haven't been paying attention to real NFL news the past hour. But Sheldon Richardson got arrested and pretty much broke like some sort of record for amount of illegal things done in a short amount of time. He got clocked doing 122, 135, 143 miles an hour, racing somebody down the interstate. Then when the police officer followed him, he sped up, ran a red light, drove into the forest, and turned off his vehicle lights. But they caught him anyway. There was also a 12-year-old child in the car. They found a fully loaded handgun under the seat, and the entire car smelled of marijuana. So I guess that's the end of his career.
Wow. Sounds like he's going to be serving time for that shit.
He was doing up to 160 miles an hour at one point.
Jesus.
Okay, well done.
All right.
Back to this one.
All right, 21, Arizona Cardinals. This team is their record is way better than the team actually is. They had by far the easiest schedule to start the season, and now they're hitting the tougher part of their schedule, and I'd be surprised if they get more than 3 wins out of the rest of the season. Jarius Jones, pretty good so far. Definitely showing potential to be a franchise QB. Who's their running back again?
Bowen.
Yeah, he's been pretty good as well. I think he didn't have much hype before the season, and now he's one of the better running backs in this class. So I think they're set to be a pretty strong contender in that division, which doesn't really have a powerhouse team in it, but they're all pretty around the same level, I feel like.
Yeah, it's like they're like all the same team, I feel like, or very similar. It's weird.
Yeah. So this is...
I think the Cardinals are slightly inflated because they had a really easy schedule to start the season, and they started off like 5-0 or something, or 5-1.
5-1, yeah, and then they're 5-3 now. They just lost 2 in a row.
I think they'll probably finish third, maybe fourth in the NFC West.
Yeah, by this ranking, they'd be fourth.
Yeah, I think it's likely.
Yeah, so I don't have much more to say about the Cardinals.
I don't know that much about them, actually, because they're kind of new-ish.
Yeah. So, yeah, number 20, Denver Broncos.
Sam predicted them to go 13-3, I think. Something like that.
Well,
3 weeks ago.
It's funny. The Broncos, they started off pretty well. Well, not really. They started off okay, and then they got a new coach, and then they did a lot better. They had like a 4-game win streak or something like that, and now they've lost like 3 in a row, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a very up and down team. They are very inconsistent. Darren Warner can have an amazing game and then have a totally mediocre game the next game. Darren Warner has been much better than what they were dealing with last year, so I think they'll stick with him. Jerry Rambo has been having a pretty shitty season. They've moved away from running the ball 30 times a game. Now they're giving him like 15 or something carries a game, I think.
Yeah. So,
and he's still not like doing that well, even with the lower workload. So not sure how our rookie of the year last year is gonna.
He should never have been rookie of the year. I already said this.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, the Broncos they did beat me, so that's one of their better wins. Who else did they beat? Philly, Oakland, and KC. So they're pretty shitty wins aside from me. And I scheme changed against them, and I lost by 3 away. So really, they got kind of lucky there. But yeah, I think this team will probably be about 6 wins, maybe. The rest of their schedule, they get to face KC again, who's like an easy win. they get to play the Giants, who they can more than likely beat, and they have a chance against the Jets.
Okay, so they'll probably win at least 4 more, 3 more at least.
I think they'll win 3 more. I think they even have a chance to beat San Diego, but not a very good chance. They came close to beating in week 1.
Interesting.
And that was before they got the new coach.
Right.
So we'll see. I think they have like 6 wins as their max. And they could end up with like 2 more wins at the least. That's my prediction.
All right, well, they're gonna end up with some. They better do well with their whatever mediocre draft pick. They end up 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah. I'm not sure how the Sam will do as GM. If he fucks it up, it's out though. So not doing a bad draft, but like doing shit like he did last year, where he just doesn't follow the rules or read the rules, I should say. Okay, so 19, Buffalo Bills. This team is like the opposite of the Arizona Cardinals. They had a ridiculously tough schedule to start, and now they're in the easier part of the schedule, and they got 3 wins in a row.
Yeah, the one thing I want to address with Buffalo is they seem super underrated. Like I remember Rabbit a couple days ago saying that with Ontario they would have easily beaten Buffalo. I don't really agree. I think Buffalo pretty much would have always stuffed the Steelers. They are like, I think people just kind of assume partially because of real Buffalo, partially because they started like 0-3 or whatever they started, that this team is trash. But watch out if you have to play them because it's more difficult than you think. McCready is basically Alex Smith, and Chad Dess. I don't know why the Packers really traded him, but he's good.
Yeah, Chad Dess has been really good this season. McCready, once they given him more of a role in the offense, they moved away from like a smash mouth type offense to a more balanced offense. McCready's been really shining in this offense, and Dess is still doing really well. So you should really look out for this team if you got to face them. Don't underestimate them. Ortiz is probably right now my defensive rookie of the year. Shouldn't be a big surprise.
Yeah, he's pretty much as advertised.
Yeah. And I think this team might be a playoff contender, but it's a long shot. They're like a dark horse. I actually had them much higher in my ranking than you did. I had them above the Jets.
Your ranking feels more based on potential, and mine is more on what exactly is going on right now.
Yeah, that's partially true, I guess. I think the Bills have a lot of potential this season. I think they have a long shot 6th seed wild card. Denver seemed like they were going to be the 6th seed for a while, but now they're falling off a lot. So it's either going to be the Jets or Buffalo, I think, to be the second wild card, because AFC West is definitely going to have somebody. AFC North definitely not, and AFC East seems like one of the teams will be the other wild card. And I think the Bills can do it. The reason why I think they could do better than the Jets is because the Jets have a tougher second half of the schedule, in my opinion. And they only have 1 more win than Buffalo right now, which I think you found surprising when I told you that the other day.
Right.
So we'll see. They play Pittsburgh next. They play the Jets, New England, San Fran, KC, Tennessee, Miami again, and New England again. So
it's pretty easy.
Yeah. So I think they could win 6 of those games probably. They'll probably not win 6. They'll probably win like 4 or 5, but they do have the potential to win quite a few of those. Anything else about the Bills you want to say?
No, I don't think so. I was trying to think of something else, but I can't.
All right. 18, Tennessee Titans. This team caught me way off guard. I said it in my preseason thing that they would have the number 1 pick, mostly because I thought this would be one of the toughest divisions for an expansion team. Turns out that's the complete opposite. It's one of the easiest. But
turns out they also drafted really well with Randy Humphries and David Doherty. for their defense, and Kareem Taylor is pretty good. I think this team is like the perfect 8-8 team.
Yeah, wasn't Humphreys a free agent? I think.
No, he was the number 1 pick in the expansion draft.
Oh, right. Yeah, so Tennessee, Kareem Taylor has been pretty decent. I don't think he's ever been a bad quarterback, but he got a bad reputation for some reason. And he's been pretty good this year. He's almost got 100 quarterback rating. He does throw
he never
many hints, but it's an expansion team, so
he was never that bad. Like he got moved to the Saints and was like mediocre after he was at Jacksonville, and then they drafted Devereaux and just kind of bailed on him.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not sure Devereaux is really much better than Kareem Taylor. I think he's maybe slightly better, but
yeah, I don't know.
It's hard to say. If you go by QB rating, he's like 5 points higher than Taylor. And I think the Saints also have significantly better offensive weapons than
yeah, that's definitely true.
So it's one. The other thing is I know this team had inquired about my backup quarterback before the trade deadline, so I'm not sure they want to keep Kareem as their franchise QB. So this is another spot where you could see them trade up to get a quarterback in the offseason.
That's possible as well, yeah.
I think they'll be like around 8-8, but that could win that division, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, it's going to be between them and the Jaguars. I don't know. It really depends. I don't know what the Jaguar schedule is like, but they do have I'd probably give them like a 40% shot of winning that division.
Yeah. Well, I'll look at Denver's or Jacksonville's schedule. They play Denver, Chicago, Cincy, Houston, Indy, New England, Pittsburgh, and Tennessee. And Tennessee plays KC, Minnesota. That's definitely a loss. Houston, Baltimore, Buffalo, Cincy, Jacksonville. So, yeah, Jacksonville's got an easier schedule, I think.
Okay, then, yeah, Jacksonville's probably going to win that. It'll be tough.
Yeah, it'll be close. But Tennessee is really surprising me. I think they have a good – they'll be much better next year, I think, based on how they drafted this year.
Yeah, I agree.
Assuming they don't do anything stupid, which always happens to somebody.
Who is the idiot this year? Leading odds are probably the Patriots.
All right, so 17, New York Jets, just below the bottom half. I thought this team would be better. They were a playoff team last year.
This team feels so 8-8.
Yeah, I agree.
Eric Wiegert, another one of those terrible decisions. We need to do like a top 20 bad decisions thing.
Yeah, Wiegert's been having a much better year than his rookie year, but
not good enough.
Yeah, he's had a couple of bad games and a couple of really good games, but he's really inconsistent, and that's a problem. I think consistency is one of the most important things for a quarterback, and Wiegert does not have that. And they also lost Jim Umanura again for the season. That's not good. They need to do something about their receiver situation. I'm not sure if they want to spend like a first on a receiver, but if they're going to keep Weggett around, they got to get somebody that's not going to get injured every year.
Yeah. I don't know if they can try going for a wide receiver in their like fourth draft in a row, but I don't think defense is that much of a problem. They need like one or two more people on defense, but then they really need to focus on stabilizing and building around Wiegert in the offense if they think that he's the answer.
Yeah, I agree. Their defense is pretty good. They're not the top defense this year.
Their safeties are not that great, but like they have Brum, their linebackers are all right, Zion and Dakwa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they really need to. I think probably if they have 7 draft picks next year, probably 5 need to be offense.
Yeah.
Plus some depth.
Yeah. They could be a playoff team, but I'm pretty sure if they make the playoffs this year, they're out in the first round again. I beat them, and I'm probably going to be in the playoffs. the other team that would probably be able to face them would be Jaguars, which I think would beat them. But I think that would be closer. All right, so 16, St. Louis Rams.
It's another disappointing team this year.
Yeah. They tried to do something about the running back situation. They drafted, what was his name?
Sean Anderson.
Yeah, Sean Anderson. He's been like okay, not great, not terrible. But he's not really much better than what they had, which.
Yeah, I agreed. He's like slightly better than Brady Sapp, maybe.
Yeah. They have Walt Peck, obviously. They have Daryl Murphy. They have cap issues, apparently. Daryl Murphy rejected his extension. He might be a free agent next year.
If that happened, in that case, I think they'd be a favorite for one of the worst records next year.
I agree. And apparently they came close to trading Walt Peck this year to the Bengals.
That would be really stupid.
That would have been terrible. I'm glad they didn't do that. The Rams are just like a wholly mediocre team. I think they have a really pretty good offense, but I can't think of anything on defense that they've done. Like Gray Corbin was good last year before he got injured, and he hasn't really done anything this year. They have a good secondary on paper, but it hasn't really been winning them games. They get killed by Todd Lester running the ball every time they play, it seems like.
They just don't have, like, I can't even name that many. They have Andrew Fazande, who's pretty good. Fazande.
Yeah.
But, like, other than that, I think Bendros is still starting for them. He's been starting for them for 4 years, and he feels like his career is nearing its fucking climax.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stats right now. They have one of the worst run defenses in the league by yards given up per game. Actually, it's the worst.
That's not surprising.
That probably has something to do with the fact that they have 2 scrambling quarterbacks in their division, though. They have Alexander Williams
maybe.
and Todd Lester.
Although Alexander Williams hasn't been running that much this year, I don't think.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, that's the Rams. I think they're on the downturn. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender. Like they were 2 years ago, they were the loser. I don't think they're going to be back in the Super Bowl for another couple of years.
Yeah, it's going to be a while, I think. This is not they're not really that young either.
Yeah. They're on the downswing. Number 15, Washington Redskins. I had them quite a bit lower than you did, but
I think it's pretty good too.
They're pretty. Yeah, Javier Fields had a great season. They're in a terrible division, but they're number 2 in their division, I believe.
That is correct. Behind the Cowboys.
They're not a playoff team by any means, but if they re-sign Javier Fields and do something about their running game and their defense, then they could be a contender for that division next year. The NFC is much stronger than the AFC, so they really don't have a shot at the playoffs, but I think they'll be one of the top teams that don't make it.
Yeah, I think I did some projections a while ago, and I think I had them as 7th in the NFC, but like in terms of the league, they were like 13th out of 32 or something, so they might finish 10-6 and not make the playoffs, which is unfortunate, but possible.
Yeah, the only thing that's that I would say about them that the why I had them lower than you probably did is because their wins are not really very good, and their only wins are against the Giants, KC, Philadelphia, and Denver. But they have had quite a few losses that are to good teams. Like they've lost to Arizona, Dallas, St. Louis, San Diego, and San Francisco. So those are like all pretty good teams, I think. So
yeah, I don't know. The scheduling stuff's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah. So yeah, I think this is a team that next year will be much better if they can re-sign Fields. they just need like another draft to fill out the rest of their roster, basically, to become a good playoff.
Yeah, I mean, they're still an expansion team. They might be pretty decent next year.
That's the top expansion team in this ranking, so they got that going for them. 14, Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a playoff team by this ranking, but they are easily the worst playoff team.
I had them ranked like significantly lower. How the hell did they end up in 14?
I had them ranked 13th. That's why, and
I had them ranked 20th.
No, I had them ranked 12th. Sorry, and their average was the same as Washington and St. Louis, but because they had a higher vote, they got up here.
Okay. I think the Jaguars are pretty bad, honestly.
I think the Jaguars are pretty decent, but I don't think they have a shot at winning a playoff game.
It's like Alan Taylor's show, and if you stop Alan Taylor, you're going to win.
Yeah, the one thing about Jacksonville that doesn't make any sense to me is that game against the Packers where they just completely shut them out. That doesn't make any sense, but it happened. So
I don't know, man. It's fucking random as shit.
I think Alan Taylor threw all of his interceptions in that game.
I can't even name a quarterback on the Packers.
Dave Stokely.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, their defense, not amazing, but not terrible either.
They did lose the defensive tackle, too. So
I believe that was their second defensive tackle, though. So
okay.
They must run a 4-3. Maybe they switched to a 3-4 since then. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think they're going to win that division, but only because the rest of them are not good. All right, 13, San Francisco 49ers. I think this team is a lot better than the hype they get. Bashir Rodriguez has been amazing this year. Todd Lester's been much better, which I expected. I did not think he would be as terrible as last year by any means, and he hasn't been, so that's good, considering he was like a top 5 pick or something like that.
Something about Lester makes me think that he's not going to be able to carry a team. He's actually very similar to Kaepernick, I think. He's like just enough to do what needs to be done, but I don't think he can do more.
I think he's like in the similar mold as Ontario Smith, where he's like really good running the ball. He's like a mediocre passer, but he's not terrible.
Yeah, that's true.
What's weird, and I didn't realize this is until I saw it in the shout box like 2 days ago, I think. Kevin Branch, their wide receiver, he didn't have any touchdowns. But he has 633 yards and 41 touches. Like, he's top 10 in yards, but he has 0 touchdowns.
If it makes you feel any better, Tommy Furry is 6th in yards and only has 3 touchdowns. Brandon Sneed is 11th in yards and only has 2.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kevin Branch is significantly higher rated than those guys, I think. So
that is not significantly. He's higher rated, but he's not.
He's like 5 points higher rated than those guys. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with that. And the trade
might be the game plan.
The trade they made, getting rid of Brian Keel for Bobby Given, I think it was terrible.
That's the worst in-season trade.
Didn't make any sense. I still don't understand it.
Oh no, our running back's only running for 4.3 yards. Let's trade him and then get a running back who runs for 2.
Yeah, and then Keel isn't even starting on the Colts, so that didn't make sense for them either. In my opinion.
Yeah, what the hell? What is that trade?
So yeah, if they had Keel, I think they'd probably be the favorites to win the division right now.
If they had Keel,
like
top 4,
not running away with it by any means. So yeah, like I said, Bashir has been amazing. I think he has a chance to be Defensive Player of the Year. I think. Bashir Rodriguez.
Oh,
He has a chance. He's in
I
the,
guess
he's
there's a
one of the
chance.
contenders, I think.
I don't think he should, but I guess he has a chance.
Well, he has like more touchdowns than a defensive player, I think. Well, that's not true anymore, but he's tied for the most ints. He has 2 touchdowns, which is also tied for the most. I'm not sure how he's done against like Wolfpack and stuff, but
Yeah.
people love touchdowns by defensive players, so that'll give him a boost. All right, number 12 is Seattle Seahawks. Like I said, they're not running away with this division at all. It's very close between them and San Francisco, and even the Rams.
I think
Go ahead.
like the Seahawks defense, I think is pretty good. I think part of the problem is that Alexander Williams has no wide receivers to throw to. It's like Burke and some other person that not really sure of. I think if they had, it's kind of similar to the real Seahawks actually, except it's a bigger deal for this one because they throw more.
Yeah, I agree with that. So looking at the stats, they have the 4th best pass defense based on yards per game. And their rush defense is pretty mediocre. It's like middle of the pack, I think. Yeah, it's a middle of the pack rush defense, but overall they're one of the better defenses. Who's their running back again?
Fred Tyndale.
Oh yeah, he's like decent. You could definitely improve on him, but I wouldn't like get rid of him. And Alexander Williams has been pretty good this year, but not amazing. Better than what they had last year. I think they had Warner last year, who was not good on that team. So yeah, the problem, the best thing about Seattle, in my opinion, is that they came very close to beating Miami, who is one of the best teams in the league. And they've had a lot of very close games against good teams. They need like one more piece to be able to put them over those teams, I think. Their losses are to Dallas, Miami, New Orleans, and Buffalo, who are all good teams. And Buffalo doesn't have the best record, but they've shown that they're pretty decent.
It's going to be, I think it's going to come down to the Seahawks 49ers game for that division.
Yeah, it's probably true. That's the last week, right?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yes, it is. So that'll be interesting. Week 17, if that's what it comes down to. Okay, let's move on to number 11, the Oakland Raiders.
Right, so your team. I'm not entirely sure. I think you're not a top-tier team this season, but you're still good. The running back situation is going to cost you probably, well, definitely the NFL title unless you have some amazing run or something, but like it's too easy to game plan against the Raiders right now because it's clearly going to be Nick Hall all the way because Dornbus is not very good. But you do have Mike Triplett and Brian Gary, so you could even against even like mediocre team defenses, you could probably still get away with throwing 50 times a game or whatever. Plus, your defense seems to be all right, serviceable enough that they can win games, and I think you have an easy schedule remaining.
Well, I do have to face you and San Diego again.
I don't think San Diego's that great, honestly.
Well, I did lose to them already by
Right.
3 points. And yeah, this is my remaining schedule. I play Indianapolis today, KC, Miami, Washington, New England, Cleveland, Denver, and San Diego.
That's pretty easy.
So I think I'll end up about 10-6 or 11-5. That's actually what I had as my goal in the beginning of the season. So that's not.
That should win you, or it'll be close. Or you might be tied for the win in the AFC West with whatever the next tiebreaker is.
Yeah, the only problem I have with tiebreakers with San Diego is I lost to Denver, which means they would also have to lose a division game to somebody else other than me if I beat them in week 17. But all my division games left are home games as well. All my losses are away games by 3 points. Each one was by 3 points. But then again, some of my wins were really close too, which not sure how that is. I still have the third best point differential despite having 3 losses. I have a pretty good pass defense, I think, based on yards per game. I'm number 2.
It seems like it.
But my rush defense is the problem for my defense. It's really bad, like second worst right now by yards per game.
Really?
So, yeah, I'm not sure why that is, but it's what's happened. It's what's going on. I think this year I might win one playoff game and then lose 2 in the second round is probably what's going to happen. Yeah, that's how I feel about my team. The Renbos, like you said, has not been good, and that's been my biggest problem this year. Is not having a run game. I had a backup plan in case he was bad, and then he tore his ACL in the first half of the first game he started.
You always have to have a plan C.
Yeah, so my plan C was not something that I thought I would need this year, but turns out I did. So that's why my team is not as good as it probably could be this year.
Yeah.
All right, so number 10, Baltimore Ravens. I think this team is only this high because their division is terrible. And they have a lot of wins against terrible teams in their division. And, like, they're not bad at anything. Like, they're pretty good offensively. They're pretty good defensively. But they're not stand out at anything. Except for Dennis Scott. He's been amazing. Their kicker.
I think the Ravens are significantly overrated, mostly because their division sucks. I think they're gonna kind of fall face forward into the playoffs at like 11-5, and then just completely get demolished. Although maybe in the AFC they might win the first game, but I would suspect at some point in the playoffs they will get demolished.
I agree. This is their wins. Is Cincinnati, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, so the 3 division opponents, Indianapolis, Atlanta, and Jacksonville.
That's pretty weak.
That's pretty weak for being a 6-2 team. Their losses are to Tampa Bay and New Orleans.
Although I guess you cannot fault them for winning games that they should win.
Right. I'm not trying to fault them. They have had a pretty easy schedule so far, though.
Yeah.
The rest of the way, they're playing Carolina next week. Play New England this week. Carolina, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, Cincy, Denver, Houston, Cleveland.
Oh man, that's some easy
their
games.
schedule is amazingly easy. They might only lose one more game.
Well, they could easily be like number 2 seed or something.
Yeah, they very easily could be the number 2 seed and then get knocked off in their first playoff game. It's a possibility, but
that's very possible.
But then again, they do have Tyrone Jones, who can make shit happen that doesn't make any sense. So,
what does that mean?
Well, I mean, like he can just have a ridiculous game and take it over, basically.
He's the only position outside of a quarterback that can be a quarterback.
Yeah. All right. So number 9, New Orleans Saints. I feel like they'd be higher if they didn't have these injury troubles.
I feel like I should rank them lower. I had them lower than you already, but I feel like they should be lower. They're just, yeah. I mean, they have other than injury problems though. I'm not too confident in Devereaux. But then again, they did make it pretty far in the playoffs last year with the similar team, so I'm not sure.
Well, they did get a little bit lucky with
They did get lucky, yes, but
those 2 punt return touchdowns, and then I think the New York game was like in the snow or something.
and now they have Sean Jenkins, who they didn't have last year.
Yeah. Kevin Richards being out hurts them quite a bit. Their backup is not Paul Gibbs, I think his name is. He's not very good, and he's a rookie. He's not.
He wasn't even that good in college.
Yeah. They've also lost very close games to the Packers, which they lost because Sean Jenkins got injured and fumbled, basically. We don't know what would happen if that didn't happen, but it was in overtime, so that was an instant loss.
Yeah.
Because that fumble, and then they lost barely again in overtime to the Panthers, who they beat in overtime in week 1. So I think they're very evenly matched with some of the better teams in the league, but the injuries are going to be the difference between them making the playoffs and not. That's my feelings on this team. Anything to add, or
no? They it doesn't help. They have such a hard division.
Yeah, that's true. It's a toss-up between the NFC North and the NFC South, which is the best.
The Falcons shouldn't be garbage.
Yeah.
Or otherwise, that would be like by far the hardest division.
Yeah.
I don't know. They'll be fighting for the last wild card spot, I would assume.
Yeah, I agree. Number 8, San Diego Chargers. This team until last week was undefeated, but I think everyone kind of knew that they were not quite as good as their record. They are still really good, though.
Yeah, I think I don't really understand. I think their coaching might end up costing them a bit, mostly because they've made some questionable decisions in terms of like passing and running percentages with the personnel that they have. I feel like Sean Cole is like super underutilized, and Richard Frazier hasn't really done anything as a receiver yet. They keep forcing plays to Frazier. It seems like they're trying to make something happen where there isn't going to be anything.
Well, I would think they're trying to force Scott Howard into the game more than Frazier, but
well, they're going long though. More, I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe they drafted Druckenmiller. I know Bryce really likes that guy, so maybe
just likes him because he has a funny name.
Maybe, but Rodney Galbraith trade has been really good for them. He's been
that was
an amazing season, and since they're going to be a top team, they will have a late draft pick. They traded a first for him. I think getting a Rodney Galbraith for a first, they gave us some other stuff too, but not.
I mean, the only problem is that he cost them like $12 million.
Yeah, his salary cap is ridiculous, like his cap number. But when he's putting up like as many sacks as he is, it's worth it, I think. Let me just look up his stats right now.
But as early as Saturday.
He is 5 sacks, a fumble recovery. I think that was in the game that did beat me, the recovery. And he's got 32 tackles, which is a lot for a defensive end.
That is a lot.
So that's been a great thing for them. What else have they got going on defense? They got who's the free safety. He hasn't done a ton, but he does have 1 interception, I think. What's his name? Oh, Stephen Elliott. Yeah. So they got their problem mainly, I think, is their corners defensively, but it doesn't matter because they have such a good pass rush that it makes up for it.
What?
Sorry. So yeah, Will Thompson just got a big contract. I'm not sure I think they might be regretting that. It's not a huge contract, but they easily could have tagged him, and they didn't.
Yeah, for situations where you might not know if the quarterback's going to be good enough in the future, I think tagging them first is a better idea.
And this year, he's really far down and as in terms of passer rating and just his impact. I think he's 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 96 rating. It's not terrible by any means, but I'm not sure it's worth what they gave him. He is replaceable, I think. So I don't think they don't have a first-round pick, obviously, so they can't replace him easily this year. But maybe in 2 years, that's something they'll be going for. If he's not getting better next year, that is. Let's move on to Minnesota Vikings at number 7. I think, I had this team higher than you did, not by much, but
I don't really. I mean, you had a little bit higher, but I don't really disagree with that necessarily. I guess I just don't think their defense is good enough to make them have a run. Their offense is good, although they do need another. They still need a wide receiver. I feel like I say this every year.
yes, they did draft one in the first this year, Sonny Beckett. He's been having a pretty good year. But they have Chester Henson, so I'm not sure they need another receiver as much as they need defense. I mean, Brian Bardell can get it done with what he's got, and then Chester Henson, if they give him more responsibility, he can take it on. They've been doing that, I think, more this year. They've given him more carries as the year goes on, which I think is the right move. I think he's by far their best player. Bardell is like good, but Chester Henson is just like Hall of Fame worthy running back. And if you have one of those, you gotta use them more than like 15 times a game, I think.
Right. I don't know about the coaching on that team. It might hold them back a little bit, but the talent is so good that it should still be top 5, maybe. Problem is that team might. I mean, in our rankings, they're 7th, but only 3rd in the NFC North. So,
yeah, that's a problem.
they could get held out because of some stuff that you wouldn't even think about. No, they might get some super hard seed in the playoffs, for example.
Yeah, that's true. They wouldn't have home field advantage if they made it in, but they could still easily win that division. Everything is so close, record-wise. They're not really far back at all. So let me see, what is there? So they lost to Carolina and Green Bay. Carolina is one of the top teams. Green Bay is one of the top teams. They also beat Green Bay, so they've split that series. And then the rest of the teams they beat are not anything special.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think they have a potential. If they have a good playoff run, they could be in the Super Bowl. But I think they're more likely a playoff one win playoff team, or like even get knocked out in the first round, like they did last year. All right, so number 6, Dallas Cowboys.
I feel like this team is like I have them ranked at 1 up. What we put them at 6, I guess. I feel like they're good, but like they don't feel that good. I don't know. They're good. They're a really good team. Don't get me wrong. They feel worse than they are for some reason. I feel like they always play down to their opponent or something. Plus, Kamau Davis is like the most unimpressive quarterback ever.
Yeah, Kamau Davis at one point had like a ridiculously high touchdown percentage because he had like so few attempts but a lot of touchdowns. But it's just because nobody can play the pass or even balance against this team. They have to play the run because Von Abraham is their offense. And if you look at their depth chart, they have talent at receiver, and they have a ridiculously good O-line, and Kamau Davis' rating is pretty good. It's like, I'm not sure what it is exactly.
High 80s.
Like high 80s, yeah. So they could run a more balanced offense, but they don't need to because they win games without doing that. And their defense is pretty good too. So they have pretty good all-around team. It's just they don't really have any stars besides Von Abraham. But apparently that's all they need. So they're going to easily win that division. I think it might not even be possible for them to not lose it at this point. They might even have clinched. I'm not sure. Or be close to it.
No, they can't. They kind of clinched yet, but they're only 2 games up actually.
On Washington, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, they're going to easily win that division. So
the biggest lead in divisions right now is me. I can clinch in 2 weeks.
They'll be the 4th seed probably in the playoffs, I would think. Maybe the 3rd.
No, they're definitely going to be the 3rd. They're not going to. Cardinals aren't going to be ahead of them, or 49ers, or whoever that team is.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, you're right. So
they'll probably be 3rd.
They'll probably be the 3rd, which means they'll play the worst wild card team.
So that could be the Saints or the Vikings
Yeah.
or like the Lions or something. So that might be. Ooh, that's gonna be an interesting game.
Yeah, I was looking at the schedule this week, actually. There's a lot of potential playoff previews this week. We have Green Bay. This week's 10, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So we have New Orleans versus Detroit, which could be a possible playoff game. And we have Minnesota versus versus Tampa Bay. So that's another possible playoff game. And there's also Dallas versus San Francisco. That one's a little less likely because I don't think a wild card will come from that division. So they'd have to play in the second round probably for that to happen. But or actually no, not really sure. Anyway,
not sure.
Yeah. So Dallas, they're pretty good, but they're I don't see them being in the Super Bowl in the NFC. I think they can make it to the
They
championship.
have a potential.
Probably lose to any of the top teams.
This is one of those teams where like they could upset and they could make it. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. They have the potential to do it, but I don't think they will. All right, so number 5, Detroit Lions. This team defensively is really, really good. Offensively, they're really, really good. Their problem right now is that they just lost their second receiver for the year, and that could hurt them a lot.
They're pretty balanced. I think this is going to come down mostly to coaching. At some point in these higher level teams, it's pretty much all going to come down to coaching more than the lower level teams, which is all based around like building the roster.
Yeah.
Once you make it this far up, it'll be like minor things to determine the end.
Yeah. So they traded for Rob LeCount last year. They somehow swindled the Patriots, although I think that's not really that uncommon to swindle the Patriots. But
they're like the Village Whore. Everyone's had a ride.
So they're doing much better than previous years, just simply because they have a quarterback and they have a running back who is not well. I'm pretty sure Ellis Williams has a couple of fumbles, but he's not terrible either. So that was always their problem, from Richard Ramos to Joe Bright, I think it was.
Yeah.
I don't know who else they had, but they were always like really mediocre to bad quarterbacks, and now they got a good one and they're a contender.
Hold on, I'll be back in like 2 minutes. Just go ahead.
So, yeah, I really like the Lions team. I think they have a chance to go all the way. It's just I'm worried about their offense now that they really only have one decent receiver. Let me see. Who did they beat? They beat Washington, Seattle, Philly. That's the wrong team. Detroit. Where are they? They have beaten Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, Dallas, Jacksonville, and Tennessee, and lost to Tampa Bay and Green Bay. And I believe both of those were pretty close. This past week against Green Bay, I'm not sure what the heck happened to their offense. They were just like kicking field goals constantly, but they do have a good kicker, so at least they have that going for them. But yeah, they did beat Dallas, that's one of their only losses. So that's a good win. And then, like I said, Jacksonville is not a great team, but they're one of the better teams in that division. So it's good that they've had some quality wins. All right, so let's move on. Number 4, the Carolina Panthers. I actually had these guys at number 3, but Saluna had them at number 4. And They averaged out to 4. So obviously, Mike Lotta has been amazing for them, and their staff changes in the offseason have greatly helped this team. Skaggs no longer has to carry the team on his back, which has allowed him to be much more efficient. And they are winning games again, or I should say for the first time, because they've been pretty terrible in the win column for the first 3 years. Their wins are against Pittsburgh, Minnesota, which is a really good win, Green Bay, which is also a really good win, Cleveland, Chicago, Cincy, and New Orleans, which is also a pretty good win. They've also lost to New Orleans and Tampa Bay. I think this team can beat anybody if they have the right game plan. They can easily be in the Super Bowl. The problem for Carolina, in my opinion, is I don't think they will win their division. So they will be a wild card, and they will not have home field advantage in the playoffs if that's the case, which could be a problem. That said, they're easily the most talented offense in the NFC, and if anything holds them back, it's going to be their defense, but their defense is not bad either. So they do have Nate Tensey, who's a really good cornerback, Ron Rice, pretty good defensive end. Let me look at their defensive stats here. I think, okay, so their problem defensively, they're middle of the pack defensively in yards. They give up about average for both rushing and passing. So if they face, I think they're slightly worse in passing than they are in pass defense than they are in run defense. So I think if they played somebody like the Packers again, who pass a lot, that would be their biggest challenge in the playoffs. But like I said, they did already beat them once, so that's my thoughts on that team. Sloan is not here, so I will move on to
Facts.
I just finished talking about the Panthers, so.
Oh, okay. For the Panthers, I feel like this team is kind of doing significantly better than I would have expected. So I don't. I'm sure you've already talked about the positions kind of stuff. Obviously, Skaggs is pretty good or really good. It's like our Peyton basically at this point. But they're wide receivers don't really strike me as being the best. I don't know. I feel like if you figure out a way to cover them, you'd be able to match up pretty well. Their defense is good in certain positions and then not so good in the rest of them. So I feel the same about that. I'd actually really like to play the Panthers just to see what would happen because I feel like I know how to counter them. But they're an interesting team, and I think that given time, they'll be more consistent at this. They made some good decisions in the offseason. I don't think they're going to win the NFC this year, but I think they'll make a decent run.
I basically said I think they can beat any team with the right conditions. They have the talent to do that. It's just whether or not they have the right game plan. And yeah, I didn't mention their receivers, but you're right. Their receivers are the biggest issue. They traded away.
It's almost as bad as the Seahawks.
Yeah, but Skaggs makes up for it, which
a little bit, but
not
you
all
still need to
quarterbacks
have.
could do.
If they had Nomalini, I think they'd win the Super Bowl.
So I think they need to draft a tight end.
Yeah, I agree.
But other than that, their offense is amazing. They have one of the better O-lines. They have Skaggs. They have Lotta, who's been an offensive rookie of the year so far, I think. Yeah, this team has definitely got the up arrow. They're on the rise. I would expect them to be at least one playoff win, maybe two. And the only problem, like I said, was that they're probably not going to win their division, which is a problem because then they won't have home field in the playoffs.
So if they get second in their division, they would probably be playing the fourth best. They'd probably be playing the winner of the NFC West, which I think is manageable. They'd be playing like the Seahawks or the 49ers.
Yeah, like I said, one playoff win, and then they would go on to play like either.
Well, then it's at that point they could be playing any other good team.
Or Detroit, yeah. So their wins are impressive, though. It's something else I said, which is they've beaten Minnesota, Green Bay, and New Orleans.
That is pretty good.
They did also lose to New Orleans and Tampa Bay, but
there's no shame in splitting with your division rivals.
Yeah, and they were both overtime wins for either team, so they're like very evenly matched.
Oh wow, yeah, that's pretty crazy. Didn't realize that.
So number 3, Green Bay Packers. I had them number 4, and you had them number 2. So
I think this is my favorite for winning the Super Bowl. If it's not me this year, honestly, I just feel like they're extremely balanced, and they don't make a lot of like the coaching isn't amazing, but it's consistent, which I think is at this point more important. They I mean, we'll see. I think they're not going to win. I have a feeling I wouldn't be surprised if they don't win the NFC North, but then do really well in the playoffs, similar to the Saints last year.
Well, I'm not sure I'm like as high on them as you are, but they are obviously one of the better teams in the league and the NFC.
Jason Johnson's going to win Comeback Player of the Year at this point. It's pretty much a lock.
Yeah, probably. They did have a terrible draft, though, which I don't understand how they're doing so much better this year. Maybe they changed something coaching.
Well, they traded for Nolali.
Yeah, and they traded Des. So I think those two kind of cancel each other out. But
maybe. Well, and then Jason Johnson got like decent again.
Yeah, maybe it's just they figured something out with Jason.
Plus, they weren't that awful last year, so it's just like slightly better.
Yeah, I mean, they were not good last year, though.
They were like mediocre, weren't they? They were like 7-7.
No, they didn't have 7 wins.
Oh, they were 4-8. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, this team, like you said, Jason Johnson's been really good. I think he like the first half of the year he like was an MVP candidate.
No, I don't think he's that far anymore.
Well, by first half I mean like the first half of the first half, so the first quarter, I guess.
Oh, okay.
So, but I think he hasn't been as good lately, but he's still like carrying the team. The thing about the Packers that I think is the most surprising and maybe not sustainable is their defense has gotten 12 or 11 interceptions, which is second in the league right now. Baltimore has 12. And I'm not sure that's sustainable, but if it is, like that's really scary for any passing team in the playoffs to face Green Bay's secondary. The thing that's surprising about that is I don't think of any of their secondary players to be really great. They had Dave Stokely, who's like pretty good, and they have Birch, who they drafted in the first round last year, who didn't even record a stat, I don't think, last year.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if he's done anything this year, but I think their safeties and linebackers have been doing pretty good pass defense. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the Packers. Number 2, Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Taylor Hayden is Aaron Rodgers.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's like the closest player to that kind of player I think that we have.
So Taylor Hayden has been amazing this year. I think he's like broken records for scrambling quarterbacks. He doesn't run a ton, but when he does run, he's efficient.
He's like kind of like Alan Taylor, but better at passing.
Yeah,
He's not like Ontario or whatever.
yeah. And they're all around very good. Their special teams is easily the best in the league. Jarrett Veals is one of the top 3 kickers.
I want to take this moment to call out who was the guy that said special teams don't matter.
It was
like-
ALWL.
Yeah, that's one of the dumbest things I've heard.
So yeah, and then Forrest Garrett, their punter, is I think the best punter in the league, maybe second
He
best.
was on the Bengals the first year, I think.
Yeah, he was their kicker and punter that year.
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
So yeah, he's got the best punting average, which is 47.1, which is really good. If you think about it, like people think about punters like, well, all the averages for like the top 10 guys are like barely any difference. But if you think about it in yards per game, like you probably punt like 3 or 4 times a game
Probably more.
or more if your offense isn't very good.
It's like
That adds up to a lot of yards that you're losing.
if your punter is 10 yards better than everybody else and you punt 4 or 5 times a game, that's like a touchdown drive basically.
Yeah. So people really underrate punters, and Forrest Garrett's the best punter in the league. Jarrett Veals is one of the best kickers. And then they have like really good outside linebackers. James Otero has been much better this year for them than he was for Miami last year.
They're just like a balanced team.
Yeah. And I think Hayden has a shot at MVP as well. He's probably not the favorite right now, but he definitely
I know who the
has
favorite
an
is.
argument. And they have one loss, and that is to Pittsburgh, which doesn't make any sense. But
Similar to the Saints-Bears game.
yeah, but they have beaten some good teams. They've beaten Carolina, Detroit, Baltimore, San Francisco. That's some pretty quality wins. So don't really have anything bad to say about this team. Blitz doesn't talk a lot, but he's been doing pretty well running this team.
We'll see what happens when they start. I'm super pumped for the NFC playoffs. I think it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I think
so much good shit that happens.
If you notice in these rankings, there's a lot more NFC teams in the top than there is AFC teams. And then
only one AFC team missing.
Yeah, and then number 1, Miami Dolphins. We both had.
I am the best.
We both picked Miami number 1. They have had a very easy schedule, but it doesn't matter because they're blowing teams out every week, except for that 1 week. Well, 2 weeks they didn't blow the teams out, which was Buffalo, which Brian Brown got injured in, he got injured in Denver, so he didn't play against Buffalo. And then Seattle was very close, and Seattle almost won, but I think did they miss a field goal in overtime, or was that?
Yeah, I think they missed the field goal.
Which is, that's heartbreaking. But they honestly could go 16-0. I don't think they will, but if any team has a shot to do it, it's Miami. Obviously, Brian Brown is Brian Brown. Don't really talk much about him, other than that he's another MVP candidate.
But Blake Shell's better. I would have taken Blake Shell over Brian Brown if I could redo that draft.
The biggest thing that makes Miami the number 1 overall team this year, I think, is the addition of Marcus Berry, which I don't know how you swindled.
Well, I mean, Otero's doing fine on their team, so.
But Marcus Berry was a first-round pick running back, and he wasn't bad, so I don't know why they wanted to get rid of him. But
he ended up getting significantly more than that out of it. He got my 90 inside linebacker. And
yeah, I know. I'm just.
It's not like I got this guy for free.
Yeah. So Marcus Berry, he's been up there with Chester Henson in the yards per carry and touchdowns, I believe. So the offense is just unstoppable, and then their defense has, if you look at the stats, it's the number 1 defense in both rushing yards per game and passing yards. Well, they're not number 1 in rushing, but they're pretty close, I believe. So they're not. Actually, no, they're not very close. I think they're like number one in yards per carry against. Yeah. So like, they give up more yards, but their yards per carry is very low for their defense. So I don't know which is a better stat. I think the yards is probably more dependent on who you face, but yards per carry is obviously you're averaging sub 4.0 yards per carry against Miami. No one else has less than that, or no one else has even close to that. So it's pretty good.
Yep, we'll see where it goes from here. I don't think I'm going to go 16-0, but I am hoping for a number one seed into the playoffs.
You will definitely be number one in the AFC. The AFC is very weak. I think if you don't make the championship game, it's because somebody on your team that's very important got injured or something like that. Because that's the only way I can see Miami falling at this point. Their schedule is a little harder in the second half, but not that much harder.
To be fair, my schedule the first half was like one of the easiest.
Yeah, it's one of the easiest schedules so far. And then they have Cleveland this week, which is also not a good team. But then next week they have San Diego at San Diego. I think they'll be favored there, but there's a chance they could lose that. Then they play Oakland at home, another one of the better ASC teams, but they'll be favored again. St. Louis, they're probably not I don't think they have much of a shot to beat you guys, but they're like much better than New England, for example, who you played twice already. And then you have the Jets twice, Indianapolis and Buffalo. So if you're going to lose any of these games, it's going to be San Diego, Oakland. Maybe you lose to the Jets because they're division opponent, but I don't see that happening. Or Buffalo. You came close to losing to Buffalo the first time, but you have Bryant Brown, so who knows?
I don't know, but they were also still trying to figure their stuff out, so we'll see.
Yeah, they did change their offense since then, so we'll see. I think you'll lose one or two games, but you'll still be the number one seed easily.
Yes, sir.
They don't really have any holes that I can see.
Not at the moment, no.
So, well, wide receiver maybe, but they do have Roddy Montgomery. So,
hey man, I think Greg Cobb's fine.
Yeah, he's decent for sure. So yeah, that about wraps it up, I think.
Only like an hour and a half show. It's one of the things I was expecting.
Yeah. So, all right. I guess we'll end this signing off.
Yes.
This is Alien. That's Luna.
See you later.
Power rankings. See you. Bye.